Hey, welcome to Florida Legacy Club. We are going to be doing a replay of our Legacy Monthly at Point Break Arcade in Panama City, Florida. We've got Ben and Taylor with us, going to be doing commentary. And for round one, on the left, we've got Cole playing ninjas, and on the right, Taylor, I believe you're on Bant Miracles, right?
Yeah, that's right. Just a straight Bant list, no fourth color, Terminus, Triumph, good stuff.
All right, well,
Yeah,
here we go.
we're not going to be seeing any of my matches today. I'm the Storm aficionado of the group, but I have played against ninjas a number of times. It is an interesting deck.
Yeah, and a deck that we're gonna see here in a minute has gotten some cool recent additions. His build of this deck, really creative, and really put a lot of pressure on me, as you'll see in the match. I thought he played it really well, and it's cool to see some new stuff in the metagame.
Yeah, I mean, it benefited from Orcish Bowmasters earlier on, and it always benefits from like the MH Changelings or whatever, and commander cards like Yuriko. But like, new Satoru is definitely a ninja that definitely pays you off for doing the thing the ninja deck wants you to do. So
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like we had looks like yeah, I won the dire roll here, played a Misty, passed. We had an island on the other side, and I'm fetching a hedge maze here, getting a little end of turn value off a surveil land.
these surveil lands, man, it's like every format with fetch lands, you gotta have one surveil land in your deck nowadays. Because you'll every time you want to fetch something tapped, you want to be surveilling as well. It's just gas.
Oh yeah. And you see, I've been a wasteland here. I see basic island from the opponent. I remember having a lot of colored mana pips on spells in my hand, so wasteland seemed like not the plan. In that, and here's the tundra pass.
That's brainstorm, presumably from that art.
Yeah, that's the I believe mystical archive cat brainstorm.
Oh, like the Japanese one.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think so. It's definitely brainstorm, but I'm pretty sure
yeah,
it's the
it's definitely
mystical
what's happening
archive.
right now.
Yeah, so we'll see that untap and draw one of those cards that was just put back.
Seems
That's the
like a
polluted
fetch land.
delta.
Yeah.
Yeah. And interestingly, I choose to brainstorm here in response to the fetch. I kind of worried about Orcish Bowmasters, and that was my thought process of like, no black mana yet, kind of see what's going on.
Makes a lot of
Um,
sense.
yeah, I considered main phasing it, but wasn't exactly sure what my opponent was up to. But now that I've seen black mana, I'm like, yeah, I probably need to do this now.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit of a passive opening from the Ninjas deck as far as I remember, but it's not like I've ever seen them play against Control or something that looks like Control, so maybe they can slow down a bit and go for a more value game, and they don't feel so pressured to be on the gas all the time. But we'll see what your opponent plays here. All these games are going to be entirely fresh from my perspective, so I'm not going to know what's about to happen.
Here we
That's
see the new
Satoru, right?
card.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the tour. The Infiltrator, I believe, is the name
Yeah,
of the
the
card.
infiltrator.
Yeah.
So if he ever comes into play, or anything else comes into play, and it wasn't cast, or no mana was spent to cast it, then you draw a card. So he's not drawing a card right now, but if he ever gets blinked, or if a ninja ever gets ninjutsu'd in, that's probably the most straightforward reading of him. But there's a lot of weird, tricksy interactions that this card can start to draw you cards for, and I know there's at least a little bit of potential modern and legacy interest even outside of a traditional ninjas deck, which it seemed like he was designed for. So we see, what is that, you trying to force the Sacher and him forcing back?
Yeah, that's force pitch, force of negation from me immediately respecting this card. He forces pitching, I believe, another brainstorm, and we're going to see grief after all that happened, which is pretty brutal. But
It's kind of odd.
I
Usually you want to like grief first to clear the way, but I guess like you have this force fight to win first, and now you can take something important, which appears to be the beanstalk. Yeah, that's brutal.
with Wasteland, Terminus, and Misty Rainforest. Now, I do have a Miracle Trigger, and I'm paying for Triumph here. I set that up with the Brainstorm. I was a little worried about Days, but it resolves, so good news.
Yeah. So now it's going to be like that's an important card because now you have the blocker. It's going to be difficult for him to do all these ninjutsu shenanigans unless he
So
has another
interestingly,
enable.
Satoru does have Menace. The card has a lot of text on it.
Oh, I forgot about the menace. It does have some text. So yeah, just one blocker isn't good enough here.
Yeah, a little rough. But and we'll see Yuriko enter here. This is the alternate art on that card. And deal me a damage. And
What
I
did he pick
believe
up there?
I believe that
Oh,
was
it's
the
the change.
land. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's another fetch land. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was the Delta. I don't remember taking damage, so
No, yeah,
um
I looked at it and I saw the art that came down. It was the land that he just picked up. So yeah, I mean, I guess now you're in a bit of trouble without cards in hand that matter or any card draw. You know, you've got this Triumph of St. Catherine that's going to attack and gain some life and deal some damage, but this deck clearly is able to snowball quite a lot, you know, if it gets a couple of turns to itself.
oh yeah. Here I'm fetching Meticulous Archive in step. One strength I've found of Bant over the four color list is the utility of your land base. You can get away with running. I'm running two Wasteland comfortably. Um, Here's another miracle. See
Wow.
if there's a response. Trigger, and then I pay. It
Very
resolves.
nice.
Here's Wasteland.
Very nice to see that on the Surveil land and just be like, oh yeah, we're drilling it. Get that miracle trigger in there.
Yeah. And yeah, like I was saying, in the straight three color list, you can run multiple surveil lands. I'm running a Caracas. I'm running Mystic Sanctuary. I get to run a third basic land in the basic forest. I think there's upsides to playing four color, but I'm really leaning on a little more mana consistency, a little more utility from my mana base. So
I can
we'll
agree with
see.
that. Like you know, Nick who was on commentary previously likes the Jeskai lists and that's not four color either and there are a lot of advantages to that as well. But I think going in on three color and being able to pick up more basics, more wastelands, more utility lands, like there's a lot of good cards that you can be putting in your deck anyway. It's not like you're hurting for valuable playables. So I like it a lot. I like this decision from you. What's
But here we see get a little bit punished for not fetching some basics. Here's back to basics.
Oh, back to basics. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, this card gives me a bit of a headache in this game, and we'll see it kind of drag out for a while. I know about the Satoru, he's revealing that. So I'm going to untap my Triumph here, draw,
I'm like
and
I've never seen the ninja. I'm not as familiar with the ninja list. I've never seen that come out in the main board, the back to basics. But I guess they have the mana base for it. It makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I think it's really smart in this metagame. I mean, yeah, I mean, it incidentally is kind of free in a deck like this, and it turns
Yeah,
out when you have a really asymmetrical game breaking effect that you can kind of just get away with. Yeah,
but
I like
you're
it.
still shitting here, drilling with the Triumph of St. Catherine. You know, ninja player does actually have to get something together within these next couple of turns, or they're going to be in trouble.
Agreed. And I think it's a bit of a misplay on my part here to not attack with both, right?
I mean, Yuriko doesn't have menace or any evasion, right? So, like, I think it is important to represent the block, but yeah, I don't know. It is a
Yeah,
big life swing.
I was really debating that in this game, and I think not to give anything away, but I think retrospectively, I would have been attacking a little more aggressively. I played a little conservatively in this game and maybe underestimated my opponent's ability to draw a lot of cards off of ninja triggers. And we'll see kind of how that plays out. Here's Satoru again, and this is Cryptic Coat,
Oh
which
yeah.
actually is really cool with Satoru. Because of the cloak ability, we're going to see a card draw here off of Satoru.
Yeah, that's great. It doesn't even say non-token creature. Oh, it does say non-token creature, but that's not a token. It's a face-down card off the top of your deck. So yeah, you'll get that card draw. But no, I think you're right. Actually, it maybe does make more sense to attack because nothing really broken can happen this turn because he's just got the one Yoriko. But next turn, there's going to be lots of potential attackers, lots of potential ninja triggers. Like, the worst thing that can happen to you this turn if you don't have any blockers up is, like, if Yoriko gets in, you, like, get domed by a Force of Will, and then they have a Force of Will in their hand that you weren't expecting for something. Like, or a Snuff Out or some other kind of kill spell that, like, blows you out. But I think it makes a lot of sense to just keep the pressure on and try not to die to this next turn where your ninja opponent has three creatures and lots of potential for bad things to happen.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah. Looking back, I think I should have attacked there. A little too conservative. But we're gonna see what I find off a ponder here from a basic island. Important that I now have blue mana unlocked under this back to basics. That was pretty huge.
And Taylor, your list doesn't run any leyline bindings, right? Any way to get rid of enchantments?
Yeah, so the only way that I could remove enchantment in the main deck would be Prismatic Ending. Being a three color mana base, you don't get Leyline Binding. But Prismatic Ending has a lot of utility, I think, still in this metagame. Binding is nice in these Beanstalk strategies, but um, has spots where you'd much prefer to have the binding, and I think you have spots where you are pretty fine just being able to cast on your first turn, that prismatic ending that takes out an Elvish Reclaimer or takes out a Grindstone or whatever you may have on the battlefield that's giving you a hard time that's representing a lot of immediate pressure. So
I mean, you're running. You were just talking about how it's easy to run all these utility lands. Would you ever consider running one double off color Triome to enable Leyline Binding? Like, what is it? Xander's Lounge in this case?
yeah, I think yeah, it's definitely an option. I think it's something I've considered. I think the surveil lands are at the edge to me in that calculation. They've really performed pretty well since I added them to the deck. At first, I was on one hedge maze, and then I also added the archive, and I've liked that. I could see going in a leyline binding direction, but there's still 12, I believe, 12 ways to trigger the Beanstalk after you play it in this deck, which is actually the exact same number of cards that trigger Beanstalk in all the Sultai Beanstalk lists you were seeing in the last few months, really before the Rescaminator deck came on the scene and kind of replaced it. But
Yeah.
I think there's enough ways to trigger it, and I've not really missed having Leyline Binding in this list, but
So you just attacked with one of your triumphs again, and maybe I'm pretty sure that was correct over two to attack with one this time, but it gets double blocked and traded with and gets put in the top seven in this three card Monty thing. How did you feel about that exchange?
I thought it was okay. Now I'm really regretting being at 31, my opponent at 6, and I feel like I really did leave 5 damage on the table, which would take fetching and hot season, whatever may be in his deck away. But yeah, I felt like that exchange was okay. I'm glad to see Satoru off the battlefield, so
Yeah, it's like if you double attack there, they're just killing creatures, right? Even if it becomes like not a double block but two chumps, the range of what the ninja opponent is able to do from here is shrinking and shrinking. So
yeah, we're gonna see how it works out. Cryptic code is kind of bothering me though. Here's Ingenious Infiltrator, another ninja.
Is
The
that
passing
the
of the
the one
turn.
that whenever a ninja deals combat damage, you draw a card?
Yep,
Combination of the draw?
that's
Yeah.
right. It's like a supercharged. It's like a supercharged version of the Kamigawa card that gets played in Pauper. That ninja, ninja of the deep
Deep
hours.
hours, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a common? I thought that was an uncommon. That's crazy.
yeah. Used to play a lot of that in is it fairies and Pauper, but here's an
Alright, now
attack.
now your triumph is getting in there. But at this point, the opponent has a board and considers not blocking in this situation. I would definitely consider that.
Yeah, do you go to one? He's gonna offer a block with Yuriko.
Yeah. Okay.
I apologize. We did have some camera motion in this first round. We will get that sorted out a little later in the video.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways in which the ninja player is just on a time limit here. There's the Triumph of St. Catherine coming within the next few turns. There's the Terminus in hand if you draw enough lands. There's just the life total that you have. Like, how can they ever kill you? But,
And I'm
you know,
thinking, yeah, if I remember correctly, I have Prismatic Ending in my hand right now, which is why I'm thinking for so long. Because
I see.
if he has a counter spell, if he has Force of Will, and counters my attempt to remove Back to Basics, for example, it's really bad for me. Cryptic Code is kind of the card I care about anyway. He's gonna cloak another card here.
I mean, this is a lot of mana to get a blocker here. Doesn't even attack with the other ninja to draw a card, even though he has the chump blocker. Is maybe hoping to trade with the Triumph of St. Catherine here, is what I would expect to be signaling.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Just get the threats off the board, try and build back up. It's not like you have much outside of them. Like, you've got a few turns before the Triumph comes back, and you just fetched it away, so... It's only the other Triumph coming back now that we have to care about.
I'm gonna read that one more time with the cryptic code.
How many cards are in the ninja player's hand right now? Like, 2 or 3?
3, I believe.
Yeah.
Doesn't have unblockable. The code gives it unblockable. +1/+1.
The advantage of having those basics in your deck, Taylor, showing up here.
Whenever something is cloaked,
Yeah, going for the basic planes off of Flooded Strand here.
the code does not give ward. So if this was to leave, it would always have ward 2.
Back to Basics is like just annoying enough in this game, right? It's making it so that Terminus is pretty awkward, stranded in my hand.
It's awkward. Like, you don't want to use it and tap most of your lands. Same with the Prismatic Ending, right? Like, until now, you didn't even have 2 colors that were available through Back to Basics, so...
Right.
This is going to free that up a bit. The double block is coming, as we expected.
Trade? Yeah. Okay.
Alright.
So I'm gonna resolve this trigger and find out how far down Triumph is potentially. So shuffling 6 and the Triumph.
So once again, this was our Legacy Monthly at Point Break Arcade. We were really excited to have a lot of new faces here today. Had some folks travel in from a couple hours away, so really appreciate everybody that showed up.
Blue. Green. Okay. Try and ending that.
You're gonna see me go after the Cryptic Coat here.
That resolves. This gets exiled? Yeah. Okay.
That resolves.
Go ahead.
Notably have no green mana available at the moment.
Go ahead. Lightning bolt you right now. Draw a card.
And there it is.
Subtlety, targeting this creature spell. Okay. You can choose to put on the top.
Here's Subtlety, a really well-timed Subtlety from Ninja's player. I'm gonna choose to put it back on top, and we'll see him untap.
4 damage. I'll Commander Ninjutsu.
Yeah, and the back to basics, I mean, because you fetch that planes, you're going to be able to tap to cast the miracle again, but you're still being taxed by some of the other things you had to do this turn. So
This is really brutal. So I get ninjutsu'd by Yuriko, and he reveals Force of Will. And all of a sudden, I'm in a pretty bad position here. I mean, back to basics is annoying me, and Yuriko is drawing cards, and I have only a Terminus in hand. So
yeah, so you're looking forward to this Trimacy, Catherine, that's just on face going to get countered,
right, it's
and
pretty brutal. Yeah.
even that extra 5 life there, like one of those previous Triumph attacks, looks a lot better now that ninjas had to force down to 5 in order to make this happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that turn was really crucial, and wish I'd had it back. But we're here to
Yeah.
learn. I think it's hard when you're in a control mindset sometimes to push that gas pedal, but I think Triumph really kind of when you have it early, you really are looking in most cases to kind of just push pressure, and that's something that when you're in a control mindset can be hard to get around, but we're seeing it be really huge here. So
I mean, here we're also seeing, like, this is almost a role reversal. I traditionally see the Ninjas deck, because of the games that I play with them, as an aggro deck. And so the fact that they're here, picking apart your hand, picking apart your mana base, making it so that they're the one grinding you out from a 31, life total to eventually could probably lose this game from where I'm sitting. Like, this is, it's been an interesting game to watch as a fresh set of eyes here.
yeah, it definitely is like what you are describing, kind of just getting choked out, and we're gonna see grief here. I have Terminus in hand,
Yeah, that
and,
Terminus isn't even going to save you anymore.
and that's gone. So right now, I'm thinking my only out is probably a miracle off the top.
Taylor, could you have gotten Mystic Sanctuary there and put Terminus on top of the library?
I can't remember if that card in the glare at the top is a Mystic Sanctuary or not.
Okay.
I think you're gonna see me do that on this next turn cycle.
Okay.
Um,
Nice. Just do it naturally.
or do it naturally. Yeah.
Just draw it.
There's Force of Will, kind of irrelevant in the end.
Go ahead.
Still at 14, but my life total's pretty low. Thought about conceding here, but I'm gonna give it one more try. So I go down
You lose 4. Just draw.
to 6,
I'm gonna fetch. Yep.
fetching to 5.
Trigger.
Try
There's
again.
the
That does look like a
Sanctuary.
sanctuary, yeah.
Gotta at least try, right? Yeah. Move to my turn. Go ahead. I will attempt to miracle. Play the Force Will. Okay.
There's
More
the
forces,
Force.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're packing this one up and going to sideboard games.
It's a great
That
game
was
one.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, that was really well played.
First time I read it, I was like, oh, that seems kind
By the Ninjas player there, that subtlety was huge. Took advantage of combat really well. Cool to see Satoru there making an early appearance on the stream. I think that card is really naturally fits into this deck, like what you said, Ben, but also I think it's going to have application in other decks in this format and other formats. It's a really cool card.
Yeah, I mean, we saw here that the Menace was very relevant from Sacher, and it picked up a card from Cryptic Throat and threatened to draw a few more if it wasn't careful, if you let him have a bit more room to do something with it. There's definitely a lot of reasons to have been nervous about it this game, so. How does anything you learned in this game affect your sideboard plan for what you're doing right now?
Taylor might be reconnecting. We were really happy to have Cole, the Ninjas player. He did a great job. Brought a crew over from from Tallahassee, so we're really excited to have him. He brought a really cool Ninjas deck. Did a great job piloting that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you again.
Yeah, sorry about that. To answer your question about sideboarding, Ben, yeah, my thought process was don't lose counter wars as much as possible. So I brought in Veil of Summer. I brought in a Hull Breacher. I brought in a Flusterstorm, and I believe I brought in some Carpet of Flowers in response to seeing that back to basics.
Yeah.
And I think I'm shaving some cards that I'm expecting to be a little less relevant in this matchup. Like Force of Negation came out. I shaved the Wastelands because they have no targets. Maybe there's a single C. I didn't see a target in game one. So bringing some cards out for better interaction and a little bit of a juke through the whole breacher is kind of what my plan was.
Anybody watching on YouTube, if you look in the comments, we'll have a link to our link tree that includes Moxfield and Discord links. So if you're interested in any of the deck lists that you see today, just join our Discord and shoot us a message. We'll get those to you.
Try and play fast here. I'm gonna
How many of the deck lists from today do you even have? Like, we didn't submit these online or anything. Just messaging people who went to the tournament, I imagine. Is what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, we got the top four and any other deck lists that you guys are interested in. We'll get them to you.
Yep, I sure will.
I don't remember if Josh made it on stream, but Josh is a local player. He had a really cool Maverick deck running some very new and interesting cards. Hopefully we'll get to see that on stream. I don't recall if he was on there or not, but that was another. We had some really interesting decks today.
Yeah, really interesting spread. I I think the discussion in the last few months around some of the black cards in the format, Grief, Orcish Bowmasters. I understand talks of, things need to go. Do we like where the format's at? I've really been liking Legacy recently. We have a lot of diversity in our local metagame. Don't play online really, but so I can't speak as much to that metagame, but you do, Jason, and I think you do too, Ben. So,
Less
you know,
Legacy, but other formats, yeah, I'll play online. I mean, one of the reasons I don't play Legacy online as much as the other formats is because it tends to be different from paper. Like, it's weird, but like there just kind of is a lot more combo online from what I've seen in videos and the bit that I've been able to play myself. So, um, I don't know. It also just like I test online, but it just never really feels the same to me. So, I like getting as much paper practice in as I can, and I'm happy to do it.
I
Yeah,
got you.
yeah, I agree. I think the paper meta, for obvious reasons, is more diverse. There's a lot of 40k cards and other things that are slow to make their way online, which is unfortunate. Hopefully that'll improve with time. But I agree, Taylor. I think even online, I'm still really enjoying Legacy, and then in person and paper, when you do have access to that full card pool, like a lot of the things Josh is running in his Maverick deck. Really interesting cards from a lot of different sets.
So we see a Grief get scammed here, and what's that first card? It kind of looks like a Hull Breacher that was taken, but it's hard to
You're
see.
right, Ben. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a whole breacher. We see the sideboard card hit the bin immediately. Was not wanting
the
that
brains.
one to go.
ponder.
Following this up with a ponder.
I'll draw this card. Okay, go ahead.
a fetch land coming out there.
No blocks, no crack fetch.
Yeah, that's a polluted delta. Here's an attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. So
you're getting beat down by this grief. What are you thinking? What are your plans to move forward and stop this thing?
play strand. Looks like you have
So
I do have effects before damage.
the white removal obviously at a premium in this matchup, but it turns out I'm actually getting ninjutsu'd, and
Yep.
so the grief is coming back to hand, which is not really where I want it. At least I take less damage. I was trying to
But
see
it's
what
gonna
the
grief you
flip
again.
there. Yeah, it was a daze. That's right. So now I know about daze. I believe on top of the library, off of that ponder, I can't remember what I kept. We'll see if I can see it in the camera here. Cannot. But
Yeah. if you
really,
didn't
white
get-
removal is kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, but if you didn't get a chance to kill it right away, then it is going to get ninjutsu back to hand a large portion of the time. If not by Yuriko, then something else. So it's just very uncomfortable. This is the sort of aggro side of the ninja's deck show, rearing its ugly head here. You're getting domed for a bunch of damage. There's daze and force potential backup. Like, there's grief pressuring your hand. You got to find a solution.
Yeah, I am quickly feeling the pressure here. I'm gonna ponder again.
Yeah, I apologize for the image quality. I believe it will improve in a little bit.
Yeah, that's why we're going to try and call out card names whenever I see them anyway. Just to sort of help out with the viewing experience.
I'm gonna draw this card.
I believe, now that I'm thinking about it, that off of the ponder from the last turn, I kept a land because I was missing a land drop. And I believe with this ponder, I'm keeping. I think I'm keeping removal.
And that card behind your lands is like, what, the last revealed card from the last grief, which is not particularly relevant, I assume.
I want to say it's a hedge maze, but I could be wrong.
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Hey, Val Movement, thank you for the sub. That is officially our first sub to the channel. Thank you so much.
Oh man, that is awesome. Yeah, really appreciate that. Check out all the links that Jason's mentioned. We have a growing community, and Jason frequently posts on all the common internet channels. So check us out. Really appreciate the sub, man.
So the grief gets
There's
evoked again and takes a prismatic ending. Is what
Yeah,
I
really
assume is
rough.
happening.
Yeah, really rough to know about that daze and not be able to cast it there. I'm just kind of getting squeezed because that grief is now taking multiple cards from my hand. Yuriko's drawn multiple cards, and including a daze, which was really tough. So I think we were also seeing Uro in hand here.
Oh yeah, that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
So if the hedge maze is in your hand, right, this is another, like, this is the dark side of the Surveil lands, right? It's like they can be one of the worst draws in the deck if you're stuck with them. It's like you almost never want to play these things sorcery speed. And
Give me just a minute here to check on the video. You guys keep going though on the commentary. Stand by 1 minute on the video.
all right.
Yeah, you're right. You don't want to. Yeah, it is really awkward to be in a position where you're not fetching for those lands unless you're playing them on turn one against the deck that doesn't have wasteland, or you have multiple other lands to like mitigate wasteland. You're really hoping to always fetch them. You're right.
Even on turn one, it's like I always feel the tension where it's like, am I gonna just like take the turn off to play the surveil land here, or am I gonna play my untapped land and ponder to hope to draw better cards, or maybe put the surveil land away and brainstorm it away so I can fetch it later, or not fetch it as it were. Like, it's easy to get sort of obsessed with getting value out of the surveil land, but like maybe there's just better things to be doing, and that's the tension.
The video quality
Definitely.
will improve in round two, so it'll be grainy for the rest of this round. Unfortunately, sorry about that.
Surveil 1. Yep, trigger results.
Yeah, there's a lot of deck building costs, opportunity costs with constructing a mana base in Legacy. I think that's true of
This
any
area.
of the variety of mana bases you see,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. There's so much flexibility, there's so much choice, and there's so many drawbacks and so many hate pieces that affect specific things. So,
Right. Like worst feeling in the world, put Urza's Saga into play before it even gains its mana ability. You just get Force of Vigor, right?
yeah,
Or
exactly.
All draw
play a
cards.
4 color pile and just get hosed by Blood Moon. I mean, there's always going to be a drawback with a card pool the size of Legacies. So.
So we're pondering again. We're looking for help. Did we find help here? Like,
Attack for 1.
or are we just getting done with Yuriko again?
I'll respond to swords.
Looks like a sword's targeting Yuriko.
Sure.
Here's the brainstorm in response. One card I was really hoping to see early in this matchup was Caracas. Caracas actually historically puts in a lot of work against ninjas because they really want Yuriko to be in play every game. And Caracas is more than just a white source in this matchup. It turns
No, it's
off one of
great.
their major engines. Yeah.
Like they can't ninjutsu it in, and then like they just get bounced, or they can't have it in play. It'll get bounced before it attacks. It's not very convenient to deal with that card. So
Pay 1, go down to 15.
Luckily for me, Swords resolves here. And we're seeing a fetch from Cole, and he's going to go get a basic island.
So I mean, the Yurika's drawn what 2 to 3 cards here, domed you for a bunch, but the board state hasn't progressed a whole lot. Your hand's been stripped a lot due to grief, but um, Ninja's player isn't doing anything at this point. Let's see how it proceeds from here.
Cast Satoru the Infiltrator.
There's Satori.
Yeah,
Not
Satori.
Pitching
an
discard.
annoying
And
threat.
Trigger
here
Satoru.
comes grief, drawing some cards.
It resolves.
Yeah,
This is
really
why you-
good.
Draw first and then resolve the ETB.
When modern or legacy, just when you start scamming these elementals with Satoru and just drawing 2 cards off of it, like the best payoff you could possibly have for playing a free spell is drawing more cards, like because all you're missing is card advantage. We learned that
Right. I
lesson
mean,
up the beanstalk.
yeah, it's a Demir up the beanstalk here, right? I mean, essentially,
Pastor.
it's imitating it at least, right? It's gaining a lot
Yeah.
of value. Here's a Miracle Triumph, which
Miracle Trigger.
is really good news for me.
You set that up with the ponder, surely.
It did.
Yeah, and it's out of a carpet of flowers that got ripped from your hand.
That's correct. Yeah, carpet hits the bin here. It's I'd say medium in this spot. I mean, he has 2 islands in play, but top deck back to basics be pretty annoying. And I thought seeing back to basics main deck with at least one, with the potential of more being in 75, carpet was a reasonable include. I don't think he has a way to remove it. So
I mean, it's against someone who's incentivized to fetch a bunch of basic islands. I mean, carpet's always fine. I haven't seen the utility of it in sort of non-combo decks like mine. Like, so it's nice to see the carpet being played for like just a consistent source of mana, even in the face of like some hate pieces. But like those hate pieces aren't often going to remove or interact with carpet in any way. So it makes a lot of sense.
exactly.
Cast Cryptic Coat. Trigger
We see some black card here. Is that Oppo Agent? Or no, it's Cryptic Coat. It just looks black because it's a full art or something. Yeah, but that's clearly
Yeah,
Cryptic
it's a
Coat.
full art cryptic coat, and it draws a card with Satora in play, which is again really strong.
Yeah. And I mean, we haven't talked about it before, but like the cloak can be a little nasty in this deck. Like, imagine cloaking like a Yuriko or a draw card ninja, um, and just having that be a surprise because you usually want to try and get rid of the coat if you can because the coat's going to keep drawing more cards. It's going to keep making these guys with Ward 2. It's going to keep making unblockable guys. But even if you do that, it's going to leave behind a 2/2 that you can't realistically like ignore the possibility of it having something good under it in this kind of deck.
Absolutely.
You're moving to combat.
Hey, I'm gonna go get a charger real quick, so I'll be back in like 30 seconds.
I'll pass.
Okay.
Sorry, I got a
Just
little.
cover it for then.
Yep. So the Triumph attacks here equalizes the life totals a bit more.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, we are casting the matches that happened today. I can't. What's that just came down?
Reanimate targeting Uro, so Cole is targeting Uro in Taylor's graveyard, getting a little bit of
Oh
value.
no! Before it could even get escaped, it's on the wrong side.
Yep, getting a little value from Taylor's Uro there.
But it does get sacrificed because it escapes. I'm not sure that was necessarily the correct play to just like reanimate to gain 0 life, draw a card, and put a land into play. One wonders if the ninja player thought that's how the interaction was going to work. Because
Yeah, the card
looks-
draw's nice, but yeah, it could be that they might not have realized the
it maybe even have wound back to go pitch cast a grief. No, it's just pitch casting a grief. Yeah, sure seems better to have pitch casted a grief and then like reanimated a grief or something than just grab an arrow for a second. In any case, there's no black mana, so the really scary ninjutsu targets are offline. There's no blocks either. I wonder what's going to happen here.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was gonna clarify. My opponent, I think, did misunderstand how the escape mechanic on Uro would work with Reanimate. So
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense given what just happened here. It's kind of interesting. He also flashes you the underside of the cryptic coat when he's like trying to attack with it. I think you got to be a bit more careful about that kind of thing. Just if you have morph cards in general.
that's a fair point. Yeah, I think off this ponder, I'm trying to remember what I found. Here comes an attack. My opponent now is down to 5.
Yeah. Between your opponent's own reanimates and, your 2 attacks to triumph with the St. Catherine, like, things are looking a little dire for them.
I'll respond.
Oh, we are uncloaked. No?
I'm gonna use.
Oh, we're bouncing the cryptic coat back, or at least trying to. We trying to swords the Satoru? Yes, that's what's happening here. That's good. Cryptic coats gets bounced. I wonder if assuming you bounce the cryptic coat... I mean, I guess you'll have this chump blocker for later. You don't really care about your own life total until the end here. But, I mean, it does matter. You are running Reanimate, you're running Forcible, you're running Fetches, so...
And Thoughtseize is in this deck.
Yeah. Cryptic Coat comes back into play here. Cloak's another thing.
Yeah, this card puts in serious work against a grindy control deck. I really felt in these games that a lot of what mattered was just who had the engine online. Beanstalk versus ninjutsu nonsense. There's a
This
lot
looks
of
like
powerful stuff.
Brainstorm resolving again, by the way. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Continue.
this is a brainstorm.
It's very time raveler.
And something's coming in here, and it's getting dazed. I can't tell what it is. Do you remember what this is?
Okay.
Looks like it's a fairy.
Like the old
Yeah,
Orange
so this
Fairy?
was
Yeah.
Teferi. Yeah, this is the secret layer Teferi.
Yeah.
One that's impossible to read, and you annoy people with it if they don't have the card memorized. I mean, pretty common card to see, but yeah, it has the words "He abandons you"
Yeah.
printed on the card.
I mean,
Um,
it's almost like something that they would write in beta, but like, it still kind of feels weird to read that text. I don't know. Yeah, so what just happened here? You got the Triumph got traded with, yeah, and got put back in the bottom or in the top 7.
And again,
you
for
have
our
a-
viewers, sorry for the video quality. It will improve in the next round coming up soon.
Do you have any cards in your hand at all, Taylor?
right now, I'm top decking.
All right. So I mean, this is again like if we're roller reversaling here, this is where the Ninjas player wants you to be, top decking. You know, the coat's back. It's making another 3/2 unblockable.
Yeah, this code is.
It's so grindy.
Prismatic ending cryptic code.
You have prismatic ending here for it,
Yeah.
which is pretty big.
Combat. Yeah.
Surprised that the opponent didn't bounce the coat to the hand to
I don't know if I have to reveal it when I ninjutsu. I think
what's it called? To save it for the pending.
trigger.
They have the mana up. I wasn't sure.
I think they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would have been smart to do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. Getting fetch off here, considering it.
Go ahead.
It's just gonna be a pass.
Cast Thoughtseize. Target you.
Punished. Okay.
They can discard this.
That's a Thoughtseize, I assume.
Attack for 2.
That's right.
I'll draw a card.
I believe it's Ingenious Infiltrator on the battlefield. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, I think that's what it looks like. It either got ninjutsu'd in off the cloak creature or uncloaked. I was trying to remember something else that was happening. But it's here now. It's drawing cards.
Miracle trigger.
And here's Triumph again.
Here comes Triumph.
You can fetch in response to the miracle trigger.
Looks like I'm fetching in response to the Miracle trigger. Legacy Gaming.
I'd like to pay for it.
I see in the chat.
Yeah, those are our
Doing
comments
it.
from earlier today. Really appreciate the Dallas crew hanging out. Make sure you check out Boardwalk_Legacy on socials. They run similar to us here in Florida. They run legacy tournaments in Dallas, and really excited to have them part of the community. And we look forward to joining them for some legacy at some point.
Awesome.
You're good on cuts.
I'll take my turn. Trying to move quickly so we can try to save time.
I think at this point, Taylor, we were getting close to time in the round, so this is going to be a tight match here. We're in game 2.
Wow. I can't tell what the
Yeah.
creature next to the ninja is, by the way. I haven't been able to work it out. Do you remember at all?
That's a good question.
It's possible it's another
don't.
back to basics. I'm not sure.
I think it is back to basics actually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's Yuriko. I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll
You
see me
untap
on
2
top.
lands. Yes, exactly. That's back to basics. So yeah, Yuriko and Imp Genius Infiltrator on the board. Trimace
I'll
Catherine
deal
threatening
damage to Eureka.
to
And
make
you
you
get flash.
chump. Yep, that happens.
Okay, this triggers.
No, this is only 3 power.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. So you're good.
Got it.
We're resolving damage. I'm
Does,
realizing he's realizing that they don't trade. So
does Yuriko not? Did he think Yuriko had Death Touch or something?
Attack for
I
2.
think I thought the Infiltrator had Death Touch. I've not seen that card in a long time. But turns out it's 6 toughness, 5 power. I assign damage to the Yuriko to get it off the board. Opponent's at 3, and there's Up the Beanstalk finally making an appearance.
And you hear the call in
Yeah.
the background. That's time in the round.
Okay. Combat.
Forcing the Beanstalk, he is at 2. There's a subtlety.
Just a chump.
Block.
No. It has to be a spell. It
Oh,
doesn't
got
just
it.
bounce a creature.
You're just blocking.
Yeah, I'm
Got
just
it.
blocking.
Got
You
it.
can gain 5.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So I'm turn
Gain
one.
some life and pass the turn. And that's turn 1 of turns. He
Okay, now we got the video quality back. Again, apologize for that.
We just pass. We're just playing to chump this down until we hit a game draw into a match win, I suppose. But that's how you do it, I suppose.
Turn 3. Cole's at 2
And
life,
he-
no
And he
creatures.
find a creature. Does not find a creature. So that's Taylor's game win and a match draw between Band Control and Ninjas.
In game 1, he resolved.
Great first round there. Again, really happy to have Cole join us. Really cool Ninjas deck. And Taylor, well played on Bant Miracles.
Start attacking for 10. Yeah.
Let's get set up
Yeah.
for round 2.
Yeah, I thought that was a really fun round. Great to see new players out. Really appreciative of the people who make a trip, and cool to see just different decks. So we had a lot of different decks in the room today, and we're about to see another cool matchup. This will be Nick, and he's playing Jeskai, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And his opponent is on High Tide. Yeah, David on High Tide, who I played in round 1. So this is interesting, I mean it's a good clean High Tide deck. Like it's I got pretty handily defeated by it. Just a nice combo deck with counter spells is backed up. It has a few weaknesses that other Storm decks don't tend to have in other metagames. Like, I personally prefer Flavors of Storm that lets you have Burning Wish so that you can get around different kinds of hate, but like High Tide does have its own resiliency, right? Like being able to storm off with Mind's Desire over and over again and go to 0 cards in your library is definitely not the easiest game plan to interact with.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there are cards that will hose this deck. Cards that, in decks that High Tide doesn't want to play against, right? Like any Chalice of the Void deck is going to be a really rough time for High Tide.
Perhaps the
Hopefully
biggest weakness is the fact that High Tide needs like a critical mass of lands to go off. Like they're untapping their lands, they're using their High Tides to make mana for themselves. So like they're kind of capped at how quickly they're allowed to combo versus some of the other Storm decks. But they trade that speed for a bit of resiliency in this front.
David, another one of those players joining us today for the first time. We're really excited to have him. Longtime Legacy player, and his High Tide deck was absolutely beautiful. Lots of beautiful altars, so I think our viewers will enjoy that.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see some cool deck personalization choices. It's awesome. Looks like we've
Yeah,
got Island Ponder here.
yeah. These nebula like cards, those are the ponders, and like the faces are the brainstorms. They're nice looking altars, but that's how you're gonna tell the difference. I mean, you could also just see how many cards they pick up, but where's the fun in that?
I see you're a man of
We've
style.
That's
got
another
another
ponder.
Island Ponder.
Having a chuckle over the alt arts, I assume. We're shuffling the deck. And yeah, this Jeskai control deck that Nick runs regularly is, it's well tuned and well tuned against the metagame. So it's always great to see this get played, especially against the Storm decks, because I know Nick and I have run the Storm matchup back 100 times, and he's very, very ready for it. So he knows what to look out for. He knows how to um, what hate cards to board in and when to counter what kind of stuff. He's definitely experienced in this area.
Oh yeah, and Nick actually plays High Tide himself. He also enjoys this archetype and he knows what he's trying to accomplish here. We're gonna see if he can, in this game one scenario, manage to find the requisite interaction that he's gonna need, because High Tide's not playing to the board. He's got Source to Plowshares in his deck, presumably some amount of board wipe cards like Terminus or Verdict, maybe. We're gonna
Dramatic
see,
ending.
yeah, we're gonna see how much interaction he's gonna find in these early turns. He's cantripping a lot, so he's definitely looking for Force of Will, Spell Pierce, Force Negation type cards here.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even against High Tide specifically, like, if you only have a couple of counter spells, it probably is difficult to figure out which ones are the key ones that you need to counter in the plan, right? Like, High Tide is obviously an important card, but so are the cards that untap your lands. So are, like, they have their own counter spells that they can use. It's a complex problem. Lorien Revealed going to get an island here. It's interesting, Lorien Reveal being used in a deck with presumably only basics, but if you're going off and untapping your lands, the draw 3 cards mode matters in High Tide, maybe more than in a lot of other decks that run Lorien Revealed. You just have an opportunity to do that quite often, and not even take a turn off to do it.
Yeah,
Brainstorm getting resolved here. These are the face alt arts.
yeah, just setting up here for what presumably will be a battle over one of those cards, like the cards you were talking about a second ago, Ben. High Tide maybe, but especially cards like Turnabout or Time Spiral, we're gonna see an instep, or no, a
Just a
passing of the
Teferi.
turn into Fairy off of Plateau, I believe.
I'll draw I'll look at the top three. We getting there. We're getting there.
We're responding to the Teferi with a brainstorm while we still can, but Teferi isn't actually that big a deal for the High Tide deck. Like, it messes with Beseech, it messes with some other cards, lines, but High Tide is pretty comfortable casting almost everything at sorcery speed except their counter spells. So this Teferi is going to bait out the Force of Will here, pitching a Pact of Negation. And so, even though it doesn't actually hurt their game plan all that much, it is going to strip them of a bit of their protection, which makes it a pretty heads-up play.
Nick decides to fight over it as well. We see another force here. Teferi looks like it's resolved. It's going to minus targeting nothing. Nick will draw and pass.
It does feel like, yeah, I mean, you want to hold up the threat of your own interaction. You want to have your forces going off without being forced in return, so maybe it makes sense to force the force. I think Nick's force is definitely a bit more debatable than the High Tide force from David. But we'll see how it goes. We don't know what's in either of their hands right now, and they're changing all the time with all these brainstorms flying left and right.
Yeah. See a plus on the Teferi.
No response.
Here's brainstorm from Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love the art alteration in this High Tide deck. Super cool.
Yeah.
Play a meticulous argument? Sure.
Looks like a
Looks like that's
surveillance.
a yeah. I think that's the meticulous archive there that Nick has just played.
Like Lori.
You got it.
And Lorian revealed as well, coming from
Just got to get those islands.
yeah, coming from the other side, picking up an island.
Why was I just about to ponder there? I will keep that on top. Play turn? Yep. Untap. Upkeep. Reveal. Oh, sorry. I was about to flip my force of will, not my builder. Miracle trigger.
There's Triumph of St. Catherine. This is the pressure that Nick wants, right? Because you can sit around all day and cast cantrips, but eventually the high tide player is going to find a way. Maybe it's a little harder with the fairy in play, but they're going to find a way to chain together things even at sorcery speed, like you're talking about. But with this clock in play, the calculus changes.
The more lands they have, the more resiliency they have, right? If a high tide player has 6 lands in play, like they may not even need an untapper to like cast a big Mind's Desire, or may have multiple untappers in play that they can play like you high tide and then you cast Turnabout and then you cast Turnabout again, right? So you really want to avoid this and you want to clock them before they get to a critical mass of stuff that they can start using to get their first Mind's Desire.
And we're going to see high tide countered by force of will and a follow-up high tide here. So this puts Storm at 3.
Yeah, so this is
Force
why
of
you
will
protect the
again.
Teferi. Nick is holding onto another 2 forces, so you definitely want to enable those things.
Yeah, and that gets a concession there. Nick takes it off the strength of uncounterable counter magic and a big life linking 5/5.
Did Nick have all 4 of his Force of Wills there in the top 15% of his deck? Wow.
I suppose so.
Well, he cantripped a bunch.
True.
No doubt he found the mix of cards that he needed there, though. I mean, there's a lot of dead cards in game 1 in this matchup, and really being able to sculpt is, or just have the cards that matter naturally, is what it comes down to a lot of time.
Combat. Oh, game 3? Alright, I'll take that.
You said it. No, take
What do
that.
you think we're thinking about sideboarding here from both sides? I could think if Nick is playing Jeskai, he's probably bringing in cards like Lavinia or
Yeah.
Deafening Silence.
So he's got Lavinia. I know he has Stony Silence in the sideboard, which is not coming in. Rest in Peace in the sideboard, which is not coming in. Surgical Distraction in the sideboard, which is also probably not coming in. Although it does have utility. If you somehow get to Surgical a Mind's Desire, then you could make it so that the chain dies, but I think at that point you still have problems. So that's also probably not coming in. A lot of the Storm hate that he tends to bring in against me and the other test players that he knows will show up to this event is not necessarily online here, and there are plenty of cards to take out in a matchup like this. You can't even bring in the non-basic hate. These are all basic islands here, so...
Yeah. Flusterstorm would be really huge. If Nick has that in his sideboard, he'll be reaching for that one.
Yeah, I think he has a Flusterstorm or two, maybe more Force of Negations, so...
Good cards. Take out bad cards.
That I do expect.
And then if you're high tide, I guess there are different versions of this deck. We haven't seen a ton of the payoff cards or action spells from the high tide player, but I would think if you're a high tide player, you're probably bringing in more stack-based interaction and maybe some bounce spells for hate pieces that could come in. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, you don't know what's coming in here. Like, as a Storm player, when I come up against these control players, I can tell you, I've seen all manner of different kinds of hate. Like, what people are afraid of and what people are willing to bring in against Storm can vary wildly from person to person. So, you want to be prepared for anything, and especially if you're a Storm deck with counter spells, I imagine you're just bringing in whatever you can to protect your combo, and you're going to be pretty happy with that.
So that was a ponder.
Yeah, I guess as a blue deck, you're both less vulnerable to hate pieces, but also less able to defeat hate pieces. You do have bounce spells like Echoing Truth, which are really good against these control decks where you might be able to expect something like Deafening Silence. But that's a temporary measure. Once you have that Echoing Truth, like you have one turn to go off, and that can be pretty hard sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, you really are hoping to have as the high tide player either really fast kill backed up by disruption that just gets around the hate, or
I know this is bad.
uh-oh, here's a piece of
Yes,
hate we're
it's
gonna read. This is
Lavinia.
Lavinia. Yeah,
Yeah, this is bad.
this is a really big problem for the high tide player.
And without hard removal, then
I'll attempt to force.
it's like I
Pitching,
said,
activate.
you answer this either by countering it right now or by playing an Echoing Truth and having exactly one turn in the entire game to go off.
Here's the fight. We see Force pitching hack to negation, and Nick
And
is gonna force back
Force
pitching.
I'll brainstorm in response.
we're brainstorming. We're looking for help.
Yeah, we're gonna see force to negation pitched. Brainstorm. This is quite the stack over Lavinia. I mean, like you said, the card is pretty lights out. So
Force pitching tournament.
Another Force coming in, pitching a turnabout maybe, or
yeah, looks like turnabout.
turnabout
Wow.
being a 4-mana card that untaps all your lands,
Yeah,
and
results.
I have to assume that's another Force there. By the way, it was played. Yeah, it is.
What a
I mean, we have
format.
This is one
a stack 5 high of counter spells over this Lavinia. Nick getting a sensible chuckle now. The Lavinia's hit the board. He stripped so many cards out of his opponent's hand, and the Lavinia is just going to go to town here.
17.
High Tide player has to
Yeah.
wait for 6 lands to cast spells at all. And I mean, and then the Mind's Desires don't work because you don't spend mana on them. So,
Here's defense grid. I mean, counter magic's been spin at this point, so we'll see if that winds up being relevant. There's triumph.
I can't imagine this
Man.
game goes much longer than this. What can the High Tide player do? Like like I said, they need a critical mass of lands. They need 4, 5 lands really to get going, and that's without Lavinia in play.
Yeah, really tough.
Sure.
Rip here.
That's rip, yeah. So that is brought in. I'm not seeing immediately the reason that you bring in the Rest in Peace against High Tide, but I'm not questioning it either. It's probably better than one of the kill spells. I'll tell you that much. Like
Yeah, probably a question of just like, is it
Mystic
truly...
Sanctuary? Okay, I just see it. Yeah, you just turned off Mystic Sanctuary. That's fine. That's worth more than Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. When you're bringing
So I
so
don't
many
think
cards
Rest in
out,
Peace is right. I
here
only
we
have
go.
one Mystic
We
Sanctuary,
have a concession from David here, and Nick takes it.
Yeah, that's the match. Like I said, Nick is a bit of a surgeon when it comes to the Storm matchup, and I've played many times against him in these weeklies and these monthlies. I've taken my wins where I can, but he knows what he's doing.
It's fine.
It absolutely does. It will be interesting to see this next one too. We're gonna see Nick on Jeskai control again. It appears, and Austin is on Delver. Looks like
Yeah.
Temur Delver.
Just chugged the PBR.
This will be an interesting one to see too. I mean, this is bread and butter legacy matchup here. What are you thinking about this matchup before we can really see it, get underway?
I don't know.
Here?
Like I said, I'm a combo player, so like seeing these mid-range versus control matchups in Legacy, my guess is that the Delver player is advantaged here because of their ability to top deck well, their ability to present counters and to stick threats. But like, I mean, every deck says they can beat Delver. every control deck, like they all have a plan for this deck. It's the most face-up deck in the entire format. So like, we'll see how the control player manages to get around some of Delver's tricks, but I would generally give the edge to Delver here, just off of gut.
Again, this is round 3 of our local Legacy Monthly at Point Break Arcade here in Panama City, Florida. For those watching on YouTube, if you check out the video description, we have a link to all of our socials, Discord, Moxfield, etc. You can hop in there and join the discussion. You can also ping us to get any of the deck lists that you see here today.
I'll be on the fly. Yeah. And your name? Taylor. Thank you.
Yeah, I think
I'm playing with Halter.
from the Jeskai side, the best openers involve an early Triumph of St. Catherine that you can back up with Force of Will or just have Resolve, because it's really hard for Delver decks to deal with life gain on top of not being able to easily remove that creature, aside from a card like Unholy Heat, which maybe they run 2, if that.
Yeah, you need
to
Unholy
get it
Heat.
online.
You need Unholy Heat. You want to get bigger with Murktide, but if Catherine comes early enough, like they don't have the time for that, so they can't fly over it with Delvers or DRCs. They can just keep churning through the grist and hope to find an answer and race it a bit better in the late game. You are looking for that threat, but other threats from the Jeskai side, like Fourth Year Lingus or some Planeswalker, might be a bit too slow to deal with. A good Delver start.
I will keep.
Yeah, Fourth Year Lingus in this matchup, I think you're really trying to cast late game on an empty board, not so much jamming on 3.
No, you never would want to do that.
Yeah, it's really risky against the Delver deck to use your threats loosely. We're gonna see Ponder here from Nick, who's won the die roll.
You know how to shuffle your deck.
Looks like he heaps.
Draw for turn. I like plays Volcanic Island. Sure. I like to tap it. I like plays Direct Range Chandler.
Austin jamming a DRC here.
Sure. I like to trigger Surveil.
Plays a bobble. So yeah, this initial threat sticking from the Delver player, it's the trouble with it is like you're not going to force any of these initial threats. You're going to try and draw like a Plains and then Prismatic Ending or Swords it, but like by then the Delver player might have Daze, they might have their own forces to protect it. It's like it feels like the edge is on the Delver player in these early interactions where they get to stick this thing that the control player feels pressure to respond to, but maybe doesn't have the resources to be able to.
UB
more
Dentist,
bobbles.
thank you for the follow.
Oh, here we go, another bobble. Just all of this surveil value coming up here. I believe the first bobble looked at Nick's top card and revealed a Fourth Year Lingus, like we were
That's
talking
right.
about. We'll see Scalding Tarn. See what Austin chooses to do here with this land.
The Surveil being kept on top is interesting because if it was an instant or sorcery, then we get to turn on Delirium here with this fetch land. And I mean, if it's an instant sorcery you want, obviously you can keep it. But I mean, if DRC just said mill a card, I still think it would be runnable in this deck. And the fact that you get to keep it is just really, really nice.
Card has proven to be a multi-format staple at this point, no doubt.
So
It
we'll
is,
look at another card, and it doesn't matter what it is because it got shuffled away, and now we're surveilling from the control side. What were you about to say, Taylor?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it is interesting to think about what might be on top there. At this point, I don't know. Maybe something like a Murktide that not a redundant card type and something he might want later on.
I'll cycle Surveil. Can't leave that there.
Is this a Lorien revealed?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Looks nice.
I will cycle Lori.
And I'll play this volcanic island.
So Nick's gonna find a volcanic island.
Oh,
all colors available.
Upkeep.
Looks like he puts it in hand and plays it immediately.
Then passes the turn. We're fetching. Is Delver playing Surveil Lands now? Yeah, I guess
It
if they're not.
appears.
I mean, even if they were. Well, no. We just. The thing is, that's interesting. So we kept the card on top and then we shuffled it away. Oh, no, we didn't because it got drawn at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Yeah. So Austin does have that card that he kept on top in hand now. And we've shuffled that away, and it would have been surveilled if Delver was playing a Surveil Land now. We got Trough.
Here
Now
we
Delver has all
see-
controls.
Yeah, here we see the first man that can make that green mana and a lightning bolt to get some surveil value.
Get the Delirium if it, DRC stays out. Oh, yeah, now the DRC is doing its job. It's attacking for 3.
Looks like Nick's life total's down to 12. A little hard to see in the glare.
That would
Here's
make sense.
Narset.
Probably not the card you're looking for here, and even so, you're getting dazed. That's just not where you want to be.
Is that a main board Narset from Nick?
Yeah,
Combo.
this is game 1. Volcanic comes back down. DRC is going to get in for its damage. We're passing back. The Delver player doesn't need to do anything here. This is their wheelhouse. Their DRC is attacking. They have their mana up. They have cards in hand. They have cards in their graveyard. There's just
Move to my end. Step.
Force Fish Stick.
we're forcing Swords to Plowshares and we're protecting our
Before this resolves.
big hitter here.
Looks like that was an upkeep, and Delver firing on all cylinders. But up here, there's an attack for 3.
Yeah.
Nick falls to 6.
I will
Fairy's a good one. See if it resolves.
offload a mana.
For the
The
blue,
days.
daze it. Yeah.
Is that when we
That's 3 out of 4 dazes out of the Delver player.
Yeah, there should be a surveil trigger. Not sure if that's happened yet.
No, I think we're missing surveil triggers here because we're so far ahead that we don't care to remember them.
Perhaps.
Like,
Remembered that one.
yeah.
Here's a Seek the Beast.
Seems like 2 lands in hand though, so Delver player may be a little bit out of gas, but I mean we have 2 surveil triggers and a ponder, so we're gonna find stuff. Look at the
Looking
top
at
card.
Nick's card, which is
Looking
an
at Nick's
island.
island. Yeah.
Yeah. Nick has been a little constrained on mana this game. I mean, we've seen Days be really effective in a way that it wouldn't have been with another land drop, which is pretty tough.
We tried to play ponder and got force negation, I guess. I mean that's
Yeah.
not great. We're attacking. Nick's down to 3. Gotta look at that land and probably get some bad news.
Woof, woof.
That's Comet.
Man is here.
I mean, if we roll enough 6s,
Wow.
anything.
What a play from
Oh boy.
Nick.
I'd like to activate
Yeah, Nick looks like he's laughing a little bit.
He's
Card
like, let's go.
It's snowbally. Gotta get some bigger dice for stream. These are hard to see.
Game 2. Alright.
Looks like he's conceding, so.
Yeah, I mean, we needed a lot of things to happen there. We need to like plus like 3 or 4 times, then kill the DRC. Maybe get something else back, like their swords to plowshares.
Make some squirrels, who knows?
Josh, our resident Maverick player, will be happy to know that we had a comet sighting on stream.
Sign in all 15 cards. Beautiful.
I have registered that card. Card is very fun.
Love it.
I will not.
You mean it doesn't go in Storm, Nick? Or Ben? Sorry.
Nah, I mean, even if you put me in the seat of a control deck, I'd find another payoff.
Yeah.
I'd put Minsc and Boo in there.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not rolling
fair.
dice.
Yeah, there's a lot of variance with Comet for sure.
I'll say that. Play that deck.
So we're sideboarding, we're shuffling.
can never
And I
find
mean,
the time
a lot of Nick's
Yeah,
the trouble is like I don't know what sideboard stuff you even have for Delver. Like
Yeah, I guess once you get
what
used
kind
to
of
the
things it
pattern.
control that can really do to improve this matchup. But can you share maybe some insight in this, Taylor? Like what would you sideboard against Delver? What would you expect Nick has here?
tap lands.
yeah. I've played a decent amount of Jeskai control versus Delver from the control seat.
I will take the draw.
It's really interesting thinking about
Floating 5.
specifically whether or not your opponent is playing on basics, because a card that I like in these Jeskai control lists, which I believe Nick is running, is Ruination. That
Yes.
card against the 3-color variants that don't run basics can be just absolutely crazy. Just game ending on the spot. So if he's playing that card and he's seen no basics, he might have gone for that. Sometimes you'll see additional white sweepers in these control decks. Supreme Verdict does a one of in the side, or an additional Terminus. The other card, which is just really huge, is Pyroblast. I mean,
Oh
that
yeah, those are gonna
counters
come
or-
in.
Yeah, Pyroblast counters or deals with
I can believe you play
most of the relevant threats. I mean, you might see something weird out of the sideboard of the Delver player, like Maddening Hex, or a card that the blast doesn't hit, but most of the threats are going to be blue, so I'd expect that too.
If Delver has Maddening Hex, are they bringing it in here? I could generally can see that as an anti-storm card, but I guess if the game's going long enough, Control's not going to be happy with Maddening Hex on the battlefield.
Second desire you
Oh, I definitely bring in Maddening Hex against any deck that's playing Source of Plowshares. Yeah.
put it right next to your fighting.
Makes sense. But yeah, I mean, Delver gets to bring in their own Pyroblast too, though, right? Like, you know, they see all these blue counter spells, they see some of these things, and they'll probably keep up the fight with their own 1-mana counters.
No doubt. Yeah, I'd fully expect to see some Pyroblasts from both sides. I'm assuming those are coming in. Flusterstorm from both sides could be reasonable.
Seems as though Nick is on a mold of 5, though, and you never really want to see that.
Go ahead.
That's a really tough place for him to start. Yeah.
Start the format.
He's going to play a Flooded Strand and pass.
I hate that we all just like God. Land results. I would like to play this Delver of Secrets.
You got it.
Go ahead.
Delver's in play.
Yeah, this is the
There's the
recipe,
damage.
right?
Yeah.
Swords.
Yeah, this is the recipe. Here comes removal. Traumatic ending, it looks like.
What do you fetch?
Yep.
I would like to know before I
And
Should
no days
be
for it.
exiled.
untap.
Yep,
being
and it is
exiled.
resolved, yeah. Does have the basic in hand, Austin, so that's
Good
nice.
news.
DRC coming out though. So because, you know, you've caught Nick on a mold of 5 here, you can just play threat after threat until he runs out of cards. But, you know, we'll see what Nick ends up doing in response here.
I think that's a Scalding Tarn. Looks like he thought about fetching and chose to leave it in play.
There was a card that got turned over and undid, basically. I wonder what that was. It was kind of difficult to see. We are pondering as the Delver player. Leaving up the red open, probably trying to, like, play Bolt. Don't think we surveilled that ponder trigger, but...
prefer not.
Yeah, I didn't see a surveil either. Looks like we're shuffling off the ponder. And I would assume if you're Delver, you're just looking for counter magic, right? I mean, you don't want to see a Teferi, you don't want to see a Narset.
I missed
Nope.
You really don't want to see removal. So I think just interaction, stack-based interaction.
Rips the Force, that's exactly what you're looking for. Because we have DRC in play, we just need to back it up. That's all it is.
Yeah, exactly. You see Delver in the driver's seat here. Gonna pass again. Missing a land drop there, a little rough against the Daze deck. It's gonna be another Scalding Tarn and an attack for 1.
Yeah, I mean, these attacks for 1, they're not nothing, but, like, they are buying Nick some valuable time here. This Delver, or this DRC slash Delver attack piece isn't attacking for 3. It's attacking for 1. We're getting more basics. Nick's trying to see if he can get a Ruination out. Fetches are being left uncracked. There's 1 basic on the battlefield. Delver player anticipates what could be coming here.
Yeah, and this is a flashy card. This is a Blood Moon from
Oh,
the
yeah.
many secret layers. So we're gonna see a fetch in response to the Blood Moon. Another fetch. Yeah, this Nick likes his shiny alt art cards, but we'll see if it resolves. It looks like another basic is on the battlefield. Is that right?
So it's like you're missing out on green here, but this is a mana base where you can be okay with a Blood Moon on the battlefield. So even though there's a force in play, yeah, I mean, so we'll Hydroblast the card because it's red, but we're not going to use one of the good counter spells. And we're going to Seek the Beast at the end of the turn.
Seek the beast.
Lots of Surveil triggers being missed here, though, with Hydroblast and Seeking the Beast.
Yeah, I really want that DRC to be online.
Even if you were just milling cards every time, it would probably be online right now. Like,
we'll see what he chooses to start with. It looks like it's going to be Brainstorm. There's the Surveil.
Yeah, now I think. Do we have Delirium now? We have Artifact, Instant, Land, and
I think
Creature.
we're off it by 1.
Yeah, because Creature's exiled, so that's not it. Yeah, we're off it by 1.
Really want to turn Delirium on right now. Ponder would be huge. Don't know if the list runs Chain Lightning or other sorceries.
Sure seems like Nick clicked that 3 times. Am I crazy? Oh, Ponder's in the graveyard. There is a sorcery in the graveyard. Instant sorcery.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Just missed that, yep. It's
fan
gone now. Here's Murktide Regent.
Yep. Big Chonker Dragon.
We're at a point in the game now, too, where even Ruination is probably not enough, you know?
No,
I mean, the threats
you'd have
are
to
important.
Ruination, and then you'd have to kill both the creatures, and there's almost certainly counter spells in the hand. Like, it's just not doing it.
Yeah, tough.
Like, here you'd want to rip Terminus with Force Backup. That's the thing I can think of that would help you. We're forcing a Ponder, because we just know that Nick's digging for outs here, I suppose. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but it's probably a winning line, frankly.
I think I like it. I mean, you know that he's missing land drops. You do get a little bit punished here with, what is that?
Pyroblast targeting Murktide.
Pyroblast.
Yeah, I think
so
you can just be a little patient here and force the thing that actually matters, right? It's unlikely that the Ponder itself is going to draw Nick 2 cards that matter, so even if he was looking for something, you could just wait for that thing.
I agree with that.
Nick's gonna
Just a
fall
fairy.
to 9.
Bounce the DRC, buy some time.
Yeah, and we see now the land drop. So the price of the Ponder could be huge here because we see the Planeswalkers shutting down all the counter magic and instant speed interaction, and now there are no threats in play. There's another DRC coming back after being bounced, and we do have Bolt to take care of Teferi.
Yeah, we're doing stuff.
Yeah, that's.
Are we back on Delirium? Yeah, we are back on Delirium because we left a Bobble in the graveyard and we have instant sorcery creature. But DRC is being exiled here. Really going to depend on what Delver has as the last, 1 or 2 cards in their hand here and what they top deck. We're also sorting Delver. There is Questing Druid on an adventure, but no green land to support it. Didn't fetch that in response to the Blood Rune.
Yeah, I think if your plan is to blast the moon, probably wait to fetch, see if the blast resolves.
Yeah, but Yeah, no, we did have the one bread open anyway. Yeah, that makes sense. We're wasting something. We're playing a DRC. I mean, this is the bread and butter. We play some more DRCs. You remove DRCs, I got more DRCs hidden under my sleeve.
Yeah,
What you
they're
gonna do about it?
well, there's swords.
There you go.
So it looks like Austin's at
Step,
21.
I will brainstorm.
Yeah,
Resolve.
game's gonna keep going. We're brainstorming now. The brainstorm we revealed off the Delver we thought was alive at the beginning of the
This is
upkeep.
a game. The game is afoot.
It looks like lands and another brainstorm, maybe.
Oh, sorry, I put one in the hand. One isn't.
That's good.
Untap.
18.
Upkeep. Draw.
Really want a green source.
Sure, go.
Oh, it's a Delver. Got it.
Yeah. Presumably rigging the top to be something that flips it. Because I think we saw a brainstorm there.
Nick's at 8 now.
Wielder of Mysteries.
Fourth.
Oh, fourth
The
Aerlingus.
horses are coming.
You have
Do we want to introduce the monarchy into this game, though? I feel like that
Really
disadvantages the control
interesting.
player. You
Really
just saw a
interesting choice.
We just saw a brainstorm resolve. So
It's a yes. He's coming in for 4.
yeah.
End step.
+1 targeting me.
So he'll have a couple horses. He'll have the monarchy, but
untap.
dollars to donuts. This Delver's about to flip. Oh no, we're just gonna brainstorm again. So rather than leave the brainstorm on top, Austin is trusting the top 3 cards of his deck to have an instant somewhere.
I think that was a brainstorm in response to the trigger to ensure it.
Brainstorm. Jesus. I suck at Exactly.
So the aggressive Force of Will earlier in the game on the Ponder is proven to be pretty impactful. It allowed Nick to kill the Murktide a few turns ago.
I'd like to move to combat.
Yeah.
I'd like to be the prettiest princess.
You've taken the monarchy.
I am the prettiest princess.
Nick
So
will
now
fall to
Delver has
5.
the monarchy.
End step.
So I mean, we're not out of the woods yet. Delver's drawing cards. You're gonna beat down and take the monarchy back, but you need another kill spell if you're Nick here. You have to remove this Delver. And the Delver player just resolved a brainstorm, found a red blast. So
Here's
it means that
Ponder.
their instance, like if they had the ability to put like a Forcible on top, for instance, unless they had 2 instants, right? Like
18 all.
it's a sign of weakness to reveal red blast to Delver, I think, and then draw it, unless you like had plenty of stuff in your hand to work with.
We'll see another island.
Combat.
Combat.
After shuffling on Ponder and an attack for 2, Nick will become the Monarch again. Kind of just going back and forth here. You're right, though. The Delver is going to be a problem if it's not removed. Oh, there's Ruination.
Ruination. I mean, that'll take him off red, which is useful. I mean, you're just gonna get bolted or Seeking to Beast again.
There's the green source.
There's the
And
bolt.
there's-
I'll flip red.
Yeah.
So we are just gonna bolt Nick, and then
Good game, son.
Nick's gonna not have an answer. Yeah, that's you wanted to get out ahead of a possible bolt by playing into Ruination, but it's too little, too late. And there we go. That's the match going in Austin's favor. Good job from the Delver player.
Yeah, that was. I think Nick missed a few crucial land drops early in both those games, and you know, Delver's one of those decks that'll just capitalize. It'll punish you on missing land drops harder than any other deck in the format.
That's why it
It'll
has
punish
Wasteland.
you. Yeah, it'll punish you early and often. So we're gonna see another. I believe this is a sideboarded game because that game ended a little before time was called in the round. I think this is a sideboarded game between myself and David, who was on High Tide.
Yeah, we got some bonus content here, like you said. This is while we were waiting on the final round, round 4 to begin, I believe. We were showing some kind of a backup game here. So we'll watch this for a minute. Taylor, I believe you said this is game 3, is that right?
Can't remember if the recording started at game 2 or game 3. But yeah, the high tide deck on camera here again. Um,
Okay. Let's do it.
really interesting matchup. I feel like um,
Plenty of
it's a little
time.
different from Jeskai, the match we saw earlier, where in this
I'll keep.
Me too.
build of the deck, I think you really want to get the green cards online early, because the high tide player is going to be able to grind you out and sculpt over time. It's kind of true for this matchup that an early, like it is for Jeskai, an early triumph is big. Um, there's defense grid, that's obviously bad. So I force of negation that, pitching an Uro.
Cycle.
Yeah, when we were talking about the high tide sideboard, I forgot that defense grid existed, but that is obviously a good thing to bring against control matchups. Um, we don't even bring that in as the storm players, but or like the Tess and Antijoyers. But it is nice to play if you're concerned about people messing with your stuff. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of a nice juke too, because a lot of times from the control perspective, you're looking at white removal that you had in game one, your Swords to Plowshares, your Terminus, but also your Leyline Binding and your Prismatic Ending, and you're thinking, these are dead cards, and then in game two, you have a defense grid come down, you're like, well, I boarded out my Prismatic Endings, kind of wish I had that card, but playing up
yeah,
the Beanstalk here is a reasonable follow-up.
Delta.
Yeah.
Attempt emergency.
I mean that card is always. I suppose reasonable is a word you can use, but yeah, it's generally good to play this card on turn 2 and get your card back and set up drawing cards from every force you play. It's just always feels terrible from the other side to look at somebody playing it off the beanstalk like, oh boy, you know, nothing I can do about this, and I'm sure gonna get counter drawn a few times this game.
Oh yeah, card is the perfect engine in a deck like this. Looks like that was a Merchant Scroll, which found Brainstorm, I think.
Yeah.
Some of the alters in this deck he was explaining to me, because
Island is top.
with it, like any alter, it can be a little hard to know what the card is. But he did a great job at announcing what he was playing, and it all worked smoothly.
Yeah.
The Merchant Scroll there and a draw. I play Misty and pass it back.
Go ahead.
On your instant.
Can't remember what I was thinking about here. Looks like I'm gonna sack Misty, and I think I found a Surveil land, if I remember correctly. It is gonna be Hedge Maze.
Trigger surveil.
Really excited to have David, the high tide player, join us today. First time coming to the monthly. Again, got a beautiful deck there with a bunch of really amazing altars.
I'm gonna do this.
Super cool. And that's Generous Int. Surveil to the graveyard.
Yep.
Yes, that resolves.
Untap.
Yeah.
Draw a card.
Got enough forests. I don't need you anymore.
Yeah, right.
Move to insta.
These land cyclers, though, such a pushed ability from the Lord of the Rings set to go down to 1. But other formats, the older formats, have been making good and interesting use of them. It's just kind of interesting, the spectrum of card design that sort of exists these days.
Yeah,
Somewhat made
definitely.
possible by Commander. It's like you get these weird, interesting Commander payoffs get printed in standard sets because they're not too good for standard, and then you get like some of the gas and the juice that glues it together getting printed in the Horizons product or the Commander product specifically, and like those will just be your staples, right? That seems to be the symbiotic relationship we have going on at Wizards now.
Yeah, you're
What
right.
kind-
There's a lot of new cards from all over the place coming in, and that's looks like a Brainstorm, Hole Breacher, and then that Hole Breacher getting countered. by a
Countered,
force.
yep. So, would have been really cool if Hole Breacher got to dome the Brainstorm player and make them put two cards in the bottom and give you 3 treasures, but getting a force out of their hand is pretty much what you would expect from it.
Yeah, and I'm happy with that interaction. I mean, it's one less force that I have to deal with later. It would have been nice to be able to get full value off the Hull Breacher, but here's surgical extraction, and
So you have a
I'm
surgical.
targeting Force of Will, I believe.
That's what I expect. Yeah. That's out of everything in their graveyard, that seems to be the most important. But what, we have a High Tide, a Time Spiral, and a Surgical in the High Tide player's hand.
Yeah, that looks right. Yeah, I think I brought in one surgical in this matchup, thinking, it's probably it's better than Terminus, right? But I don't love the card in the matchup. Being able to strip Force of Will is nice, though. Just taking off the pressure of
Got it.
counter spells, dealing with whatever I'm trying to interact with, and him being able to go off is
Stripping,
nice to be able to relieve that.
stripping Force of Will. There's a world where stripping High Tide is a responsible thing to do if you force them to use a High Tide earlier on in the match. Like, um, in my match against David, I got him to the point in the counter war where he had to use a force to negate or pact of negation, and then to pay for the pact in his upkeep, he had to use High Tide. So if you surgical the rest of the tides at that point, then you could really get them good.
I agree. Yeah. One of those decks that, like you said, needs the requisite number of lands and play that resource of what you're doing with your high tide to actually go off. And he's got he's got lands in play, and he's got the time spiral, but we're gonna see what he goes for here with surgical. It looks like it's gonna be force of
Force of
negation.
negation. Yeah, we're gonna see the him try to strip the protection a little bit here.
There are only two force negations in my 75, so he'll get one more out of the deck here. Get a look. My grip is Brainstorm, Force, Triumph, Loam, and Veil, which is pretty good.
It is good. I mean, Veil's going to help you win the counter war here, but the win condition of High Tide is not veilable, much like the traditional Storm Tendrils win con. So, got to be careful about that. But getting a,
Yeah.
there wasn't a Force of Will in your graveyard to grab. Otherwise, surely David would have grabbed Force of Wills. But seeing the Force of Will back up, just like, you can't, your hand is just High Tide Time Spiral here, and normally it would be fantastic, but here it's just a disaster. Your Time Spiral gets forced, and then what do? You pass the turn. You hope to draw like Force Blue card, more card draw, more whatever, but the control player is taking twice as many game actions to sculpt their hand over the course of the game. This is not the place you want to be in.
Right. And with Brainstorm, Triumph in hand, being able to set up the top of the library to put a threat into play is pretty good, and you're going to see that right here.
That results.
So yeah, now High Tide's being clocked. They're on 13 for some reason. Lots of fetching and surgical extraction, I suppose. So, 3 turns, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, and I draw off of the Beanstalk, trigger, and follow it up with a Sea Rainforest and a pass.
Cast
Merchant Scroll. Yep, Merchant Scroll.
What
do
we
get with
it here? Yeah.
Force? I would get Force. But no, those have been that's right. Those forces have been surgical. So yeah, you're really in a bind. You get Offer. Yeah, that's not bad either.
Yeah, it's definitely reasonable. Forces being extracted, I think, was pretty big in this game. I'm fetching, looks like, instep here, and going for another Surveil land.
So now with the protection, like, we're on board, like, one good card away from being able to go off here, because it's like you're gonna get force the time spiral, you're gonna offer, it's gonna get veiled, so we need one more thing to like try to go off without it being a ridiculous thing to be doing. And not that much time to go for it, but but there's deafening silence, and so now it's now we have to offer. Now we have to fight over the deafening silence, and like I think you can fight over the Deafening Silence here because it's like, what's gonna happen? Yeah, the Veil just comes out,
Draw a
Yeah.
card.
draw a card,
Silence resolves. Okay, go ahead.
Deafening Silence comes into play. I would expect the High Tide player to even concede here. There's just too much stuff behind. As a Storm player against a Control player, like,
Go ahead.
it's important to have a critical mass of cards as you're sculpting your hand. You want to have the ability to like present multiple threats or multiple threats over multiple different turns, and how you meet out your resources over the course of the game is
You're at 28.
going to be really important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you got
Yeah, I
it.
don't know what the draw could be here. It's gonna be a concession.
Yep.
Looks like it was Teferi's Realm, but with the lethal threat in play and the deafening silence holding it all down, it's a tough spot to be in. So it looks like we're gonna see last match of the day.
Who was your opponent on this one, Taylor? Was that Austin?
This was Austin again, yeah, playing Delver. We're Delver.
Legacy. There was a list that runs only 1 Badlands, 2 Bayou, and a Taiga.
I was on stream a lot today.
You were.
Yeah.
Bayou and a Taiga, which
This is our fourth and final round, I believe. Right, Taylor?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. This was my last match of the day.
yeah, you
I
want to
believe.
No.
So that first one, we had a draw.
I like 2 dice.
Then I won. Second match against
Not 8.
I will take.
won my second match against the Epic Storm, I believe.
Was it the other Storm player at the store? Yeah.
Yeah, I played against the Epic Storm and High Tide. So yeah, I wound up winning that High Tide matchup, and so I'm 2-0-1 going into this one. And Austin, I believe, is undefeated going into
That's
this.
correct, yeah. And you can see my butt over there, right above Taylor's. I won my way after losing to High Tide to being in the 2-1 bracket, fighting for third and fourth place against Nick.
Oh, easy mode. Nice.
Yeah, such a great day for Legacy. Just beautiful day. Great crew. Like Jason said, we had a lot of people show up from out of town, and any chance you have to just like jam Paper Legacy, it's a blast. So, and Austin's taking a mulligan here, I believe.
I'll keep it.
Cool.
This bad card.
Right on.
Alright.
Yeah, so we've resolved mulligans, and Austin's on the play. He's going to start with a volcanic island.
Sure.
Get the bauble out there. No DRC to go with it. But, check his own top of the deck. For some reason.
Yeah, I think I prefer looking at the top of my deck there, but
If you have a fetch, right, like that's the traditional line. You bobble the top of your deck, see if you like it, see whether you fetch now or at the end of their turn. But
yeah, also Delver being in play. Sometimes you'll play Delver, play Bobble on one, Bobble yourself on their instep to know if you're going to flip Delver. Changes how you resolve the triggers, right? Because if you know you're not flipping Delver, you draw off Bobble first. Get an extra look deep on your Delver flip, things like that. But
so we drew Wasteland off of the bobble. We must have drawn DRC now, because it seems unthinkable to not have played DRC on the first, turn if you had it. Just to jam out against control.
Yeah, I think we're in a situation here where I'm thinking Plains is my best option. We'll see what I wind up grabbing. I think it will be the Plains.
What's your opinion on jamming Wasteland against a fetch land here? Like, would you want to try and surprise and hit a non-basic, or do you think the value of forcing them to fetch potentially suboptimally is worth it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're going to see me play a Wasteland here, so now I have the option to totally play around Wasteland, because I can just Wasteland his Wasteland if I wanted to, or go after the red and blue source there. You see Force of Will pitching a Murktide on this Prismatic Ending. and it looks like that'll work. So DRC sticking around.
But no
Looks
surveil
like
trigger.
he's
Oh,
he's
there we go.
surveilling now.
Yeah.
We're flipping probably. Yeah, putting a creature in there. So we're one away
Yeah.
from delirium.
I'll take the dress down.
We gotta let Austin know if he goes to a more serious event, people are gonna be on him over that stuff.
Uh oh. he he's now wastelanded off of his colored source. We'll see if there's a follow up land drop. That was a really weird decision of like
Artifact
I
creature.
think in my hand I had two or three other lands, so I thought I can just accept that he's gonna wasteland me at some point, and I do wind up getting his only colored source out of play without
Yeah,
another colored
I was going
source.
to say, like, as a follow up to what your opinion on this Wasteland as pressure is, like, do you think that Austin ever does this if he has another land? And I don't think the probability is high, and so I do think that Wastelanding the Volk there is a bit of a heads up play given that context. And we see now that it's pretty nice. So I mean, he's
White.
you know
Yeah.
we're swords in the DRC and we're wasting a Savannah and it's bait, but there we go. DRC's down.
Yeah. And I put that Savannah into play just to play around days. I'm accepting it's a wasteland target. You can see I have another tropical island in hand here, so I've got my
Yeah.
green source. I'd rather not lose my blue source than lose the Savannah. And here's up the beanstalk. Pretty good.
Go ahead.
Untap. Upkeep. Draw.
Well, we drilled the island, so not gonna get wastelanded anymore, but maybe needs to find red to do things.
Trigger surveil.
I think that's one of the old Esper islands, a quality
Yeah, that
island.
looks like it. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Draw.
that's right.
Crack for blue.
Shards of Alara, yeah.
Mhm.
Good stuff.
The fact that they had different art directors or different artists assigned to each shard was really nice, right down to the basic lands. We get the ponder here coming off of this. Hopefully, finds Austin some help here, but it seems like he's behind the eight ball here. I would give the edge to the control player in this spot. Just looking at it. Austin's down
Yeah,
more cards than you kind of expect, and control player has up the beanstalk and lands in play and a bit of the initiative here.
yeah, I agree. And at this point, I'm just trying to avoid big Murktide without having an answer for it.
Yeah.
Do a shot.
I'm at 15. The pressure's not really been on this game, so
I would like you
I'm
to
pretty
shot.
comfortable as far as my life total goes, which is good. Fetching a trop here, I believe we're going to see Uro, but I can't remember.
Be the Murktide.
Looks like it's
Oh, you're
actually my
Murktide.
own Murktide. Yeah. Here we see the power of this one of in the deck. I could definitely say that this card is really amazing at turning the corner in control decks. This is something the Sultai Beanstalk deck obviously maxes out on, and they play 3 or 4 of
Well,
these.
first trigger beats.
I'm playing one. It's a little more of a controlling strategy with Terminus and stuff in the build, but it's going to come up big here.
It competes with, Uro as well here, so it makes sense to not see too many of them. But yeah, here it's going to look pretty good. This Delver doesn't really look so great against the Murktide. I don't know what the state is on pre-boarded Pyroblasts, but I'm just not going to guess that Austin has a good answer to them. Like, pre-boarded Pyroblast seems more like a Ragavan Delver metagame decision.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going to think there's no Pyroblast in his main deck either. It's going to be a Loam here, and
Loam is
gonna
cool with
refill the
Murktide,
deck.
because every time you dredge it, it gets bigger, but,
Move to my instant.
Yeah, there's a
It's
lot
gonna
of weird
leave your
little
graveyard.
synergies.
Upkeep.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird little synergies in this deck. Delver flips here to Spell Pierce.
It's a little too late on Spell Pierce. It's not really doing a whole lot right now.
What's your
I would fetch it away in this spot if I was Austin before drawing it, but maybe that's Not his thinking.
Yep.
But now that the
Yeah.
Delver is big enough to block Murktide and bolt it, at the very least, that could be what he's going for.
Tropical Island.
Yeah.
We're gonna see if you're right, Ben.
Not bad.
I think we're gonna see that exact play that you just mentioned here. So, good
I might not
intuition.
even have attacked into this as the control player, considering that line without a way to deal with it. But I don't know what's in your hand here, so we'll see how that happens.
You've only done that once. I've only done that once. That does still merit an
Oh, but he does take it.
That is how it works.
Go ahead.
Fetch instead.
I'm surprised you keep Spell Pierce with control player on 5 lands. It like theoretically pressures it, but it's like it's a known quantity.
I would like at the end step to seek. The
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to play around when you know it's there. I mean, obviously, you get in spots where it really squeezes you and you have no choice but to play into it. But
I just don't think this is one of those spots. Is all I'm saying.
I
I don't think it's
agree.
unreasonable in the matchup.
Yeah, I think you reveal and then fetch probably. It's going to be a force of will
On
on the
Seek and the Beast.
Beast. Yeah, triggering my beanstalk, responding to the trigger. So maybe he kept this. Maybe
Could
he
be a
kept
blue
this.
card, yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
Gonna
that
feature
does make a lot more
Storm.
sense in hindsight now that I'm thinking about it. So we're brainstorming. So I mean, we're fighting over this Seek the Beast, right? And that's because I mean, 2 cards for Delver is great, even if they're tapped out right now. But like, you know, they could get more lands, which they're in desperate need of. They could get like land cantrip. If that land is green, threatening to play a questing druid is one of the ways that you can get quote unquote bigger than this Murktide. If it if a little slowly.
Got it. So I do draw first.
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay. That resolves.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We reveal just land days here, though, not really what we're looking for necessarily. Probably wanted to see another threat or something like Unholy Heat, because this Murktide is still around, and Elver can't really profitably interact with it. We'll see if that line comes up that we were talking about with a bolt and a block, potentially.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We do see Days go back into exile. This land represents something that can get a trop and play this questing druid, but with a few cards in hand, we're just gonna pass it back and try and like, you know, represent blocking with bolt at the very least.
Wasteland.
Yeah.
Track for Underground Sea and Thoughts issue.
But now with the wasteland, you know,
3 cards. 2
well, you don't really have the ability to take him off because, but with the wasteland, it's hard for Austin to fetch here without exposing himself.
Cool. Blocks, yeah.
Before damage.
Yeah.
I could attempt to bolt it.
We are bolting it. Let's see if we fight over the bolt.
Yeah, still before damage. Okay, it's bolted, so it has 3 damage
3
on it.
damage mark.
So this is all happening before damage, and we're going to see a swords to make the bolt irrelevant.
Yep, so we did have a plan for the bolt the whole time. And
This is why I ran.
yeah, without a second bolt, we're a little sad about this,
Wasteland Volcanic Island.
as Austin. We're wasting that. We're going to force him to make a choice because you're not running Taigas.
Taiga,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can either play Questing Druid, which is not going to do enough for you, or you can have access to red mana, which is the stuff that turns on, you know, which is helpful for all this other stuff. But Austin only has 1 card in hand. We're just behind the 8 ball here. This was the play that you had to make to bolt the Murktide and trying to get off the field and try and stabilize for a few more turns. Even with you fanning yourself with 6 to 7 cards in hand, it's just a desperate situation for the
Yeah.
Delver player.
Yeah, you're right. I'm in kind of cruise control here with a big threat on board and card advantage engine online. At this point, really the only thing that can give me any kind of pause would be an opposing Murktide or an Unholy Heat. But this little questing druid is, I think, like you said, behind the 8 ball. Too little, too late, unfortunately.
Brainstorm resolves.
Yeah.
There's a prismatic ending for good measure.
Go ahead.
Untap. Draw. Go.
I still want to play around So you're at 6.
Yep.
So we're fetching to 6. Let's see what the plan here is going to be for Austin. Petty theft could be good.
Looks like another Seek the Beast.
That's good.
So that's resolved.
Yep, we're going
We're
through the
gonna
motions
see-
here. We get some stuff that doesn't matter. We pass the turn. We concede the game. Right?
No
We're playing a solitude. We're not doing anything.
This is on your instant. This is in combat.
Yeah, the Solitude now represents a lethal threat. I don't know what we're thinking about here.
That's fine. We'll just
It
keep
can't be much. I mean, just-
Tap. Draw.
getting ahead of myself.
Oh, that's right. He did all of this. He was seeking the beast during combat. We just got confused about where
was
we were
happening.
in the turn order. It's going to wind up being kind of a moot point here, though. We do see Bobble and Questing Druid.
Yep.
Austin being at 1, he's going to need some way to deal with the Murktide.
post-combat DRC. Kill yourself with the fetch. Yeah, that seems like the play. I'm gonna use the bathroom, and I'll be back in a couple of seconds.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're headed
Yeah.
to game 2 of the final round of our local Legacy Monthly. Again, everybody watching on YouTube, if you look in the description of the video, you can find the link to our Discord, Moxfield, Twitter, Twitch, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone who is watching right now on stream, and
As to what part of the turn
go check it out on YouTube, and hope you enjoy. If you're anywhere near the area in the southeast, stop by. Got a big 1K coming out next month, right?
That's right, May 18th. Got a 1K we're really excited about. That'll be our first 1K of since we've started running these local events, so looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm really sad I'm not going to be able to make it out for that one, but turnout should be great. We have some people from Tallahassee and I think Georgia and other places who seem interested in coming, so
kind of been a little bit iffy on.
should be a
Absolutely.
great time. Yeah. So yeah, this matchup I think is naturally pretty rough for the Delver player, and post-board games gets a little trickier even. I have
Ready?
2 Endurances in my sideboard, which is just a great card. Blocks the small threats, keeps them off Murktide in a pinch. If you pitch it, I have Hydroblast and Fluster, so some cheap interaction. Taking Force of Wills out of the deck, I think I took 3 out to bring in some cards that are not 2-for-1s and a little more impactful. Looks like
I'm
we're
back, by
seeing
the way.
basics. Oh, yo. Looks like we're seeing basics here. Here's the Delver.
Yeah.
Carpet of Flowers.
Yeah.
Out of way.
Moving to second main phase, adding white mana.
Wait.
And yeah.
Go ahead.
This
I mean,
card
Carpet of
does
Flowers,
so much
it's nice against
yeah.
it's nice against Delver, but they do have ways to play around it. You know, all their lands are islands, but they have Wasteland. They have days to pick up their own lands. But if you're getting 1 to 2 mana off of this thing, like, it's still getting the job done, and they can't really deal with it. So
Yeah, I think Carpet's really big in all of the blue Wasteland matchups. Any deck that runs islands plus wasteland, it's even better. Just making their wastelands worse. And he has 2 islands in play now.
Yep.
So it's just kind of the opportunity cost is so low,
You could
and the
play a
impact of
Solitude
this
now if you
card.
wanted. Yeah.
Yeah. And late in the game, you're going to see this be just Dark Ritual every turn,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Delver players will fight over Carburet. When I play it as Storm, you know, they'll use actual counter spells on it, and they're correct too. So,
Agreed.
but they have more important things to fight over in the control matchup, I think. So I think that makes Carpet even better there. It doesn't really count as like an actual threat while providing lots of value for you. That makes them sad if it's being cast.
Totally.
Second main phase. Yeah, 2 green. Yeah. Up the beanstalk.
Activating for 2 green and immediately playing up the beanstalk and drawing a card. So I'm pretty set up here. Really not feeling too much pressure, even have an answer for the DRC. So kind of we're in the exact spot we want to be in here from my point of view.
How'd you like it?
I'll ponder.
Hard? Not my way of playing. I got you. I got you. Very powerful wizards.
One card I talked to Austin about, which I think is in his sideboard, is Counterbalance.
Oh yeah.
That card is really obviously good against storm decks, but I think it's really good against control too. When I've played Delver recently, I main decked 2 copies of Counterbalance and thought it was really good. So that's a card I would consider even moving to the main board of a deck like this. It also incidentally is good with Surveil, and Delirium, because it's just an additional type in your graveyard that you don't see that often. So
Bennett. Yep. Good on top.
Yep.
Draw. Trigger.
Yeah, surveil.
Here's a Surveil land from Taylor.
I'll keep that there. Second main phase.
Go ahead.
Add 2 green.
Yeah.
Beanstalk.
Trigger.
Draw.
Another beanstalk.
Brainstorm.
Yeah.
That's not in the standard sideboard plan. That's the
Brainstorm. I don't remember exactly what I was looking for here. I think really I'm just trying to set up a threat. Miracle Triumph, something along those lines.
Yeah, that would be the thing to do at this stage. Like, you've got your card draw online, you've got your mana unlocked, but you know what I mean. He's got the Delver, so you're presumably in this stage to stabilize the board state, but you'd like to actually get something out there to clock him.
Combat. 3.
And nothing's ever certain, you know. Even though you've got cards that draw you cards, he's got a full grip of cards. He's got Brainstorm in hand, revealed. You know, we're trying swords that. That's just gonna happen. We're letting that go.
Yeah, my thought process on waiting there was I really wanted to see if there was going to be a post-combat Murktide, so I held on to swords, accepted 3 damage.
I think that's more than fine in this circumstance. We just
Yeah.
pass, we brainstorm, we're trying to hull breach.
I'll respond.
Is this the fight that Austin wants to fight over? It is. We're pyroblasting the hull breach as it resolves. Or are we countering it? I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter.
This just gets like $2 cheaper with these surveillance. I know, right? It's like, it actually does.
Forcing the pyroblast.
Yeah.
Draw 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously the nuts if this hull breacher sticks, so this is the fight everyone wants to fight over.
3 trophies.
And it looks like Austin packs it up in response to all this. So that brainstorm's gonna happen.
Tesoro.
We're gonna get 3 treasures, and he's gonna put 2 cards on the top of his deck, and that's almost game over to a Delver player, right? It's like we're brainstorm locked for 2 turns, and you just got a bunch of treasure and a threat in play. What could even
Yeah,
come out? And there's the Murktide. I mean, like, we were waiting for that, and we baited the swords out, so now we're back in the game a little bit. But if you have any sort of answer to this Murktide, then you're gonna be happy.
yeah, definitely. I think I'm still feeling pretty okay from this position. It's a big Murktide. It is a full 8/8, so it represents a 2-turn clock. I'm gonna activate my carpet. We'll see what I cast. Spending the mana immediately. Solitude.
Solitude,
Yeah.
a fine card.
And I draw 2. Really, really
Solitude,
strong.
hard cast Solitude, draw 2, kill your Murktide. You have another card on top that Brainstorm put there. Um, I mean, Austin at 31 life, but looking grim, the situation. Can't even, like, you'll have to bolt the Solitude and, like, Pyroblast the Whole Breacher, and you can't even draw more cards to do it. Gonna take a bit to dig yourself out of this situation.
Yeah, this is a really tough spot for him. Just look at how many permanents I have in play. He has 2 permanents in play. And I just pulled ahead early here with Beanstalk and never looked back. See, a bolt on the Hole Breacher, trying to free up cantrips here. Thinking about that and letting it go.
I would like to brainstorm.
Now we're brainstorming again.
I don't believe I have any counter magic in my hand at this point.
I think you probably would have used it on that bolt.
Yeah. Almost definitely. Especially Force of Will, which just draws more cards. So that'll work, and we'll see what Austin can follow up with here.
Top. Wasteland.
Wasteland, kind of not good enough. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get him off of a color here. He's got carpet.
Yeah, mana not the issue here.
Brewery.
I'm gonna gain some life from this attack for 3. Austin down to 25.
Go.
We're gonna see an instep endurance.
Yeah. Target.
Get the rest of that graveyard on the bottom there. Just get in for some more beats. This is like how Yawgmoth uses endurance. You just jam it out there. 3/4 flyer. You have 3/4 reach. Beat him.
Yeah, endurance can be just insane in this matchup in particular, and I think it's pretty well positioned in the metagame right now. A lot of graveyard shenanigans. It's good as a surprise blocker, even on something like Orcish Bowmasters. It has a lot of utility.
Yeah, and I mean Delver and DRC are 3X's with flying. It just lines up so good against those.
Right.
Here's another beanstalk. Got 3 beans on the field.
That's right. I'm having modern flashbacks to the Cascade Beanstalk deck.
Yeah.
3,
These
4
elementals and beanstalks.
Goddamn. Can't believe they let that stand for the short time that they did.
Yeah, that was a wild time.
Yeah, we're just drawing the whole deck now.
Yeah. Again, this is round 4 of our local Legacy Monthly. There were 4 rounds of Swiss. No cut. This looks like what is this, a Blood Moon?
Yeah, you're seeing me fetch a basic island here in response to this Blood Moon. Not super concerned about it. I mean, I have carpet in play. I have my basic plains and my basic island now off this fetch. I'll brainstorm in response and see what I can come up with. But I'm pretty sure I just let this resolve. I may not have had a counter, but I don't think even if I had had one, I would have used it. He's at 18. I have 6 power in play, so Gaining some more life.
Untap. Draw. Go. Pay 2 life.
Surgical targeting brainstorm.
Swords, brainstorm.
He's targeting force here. Yeah.
Force, okay.
I'll play open.
Which winds up not doing really anything because I boarded 3 forces out in this matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, forcible in post-board games against Delvers is a bit of a liability with Pyroblast and Red Blast. Him to Turok, and then they counter it anyway.
Yeah.
Like hemming yourself, and then they counter it anyway. So I keep one in for cards like Maddening Hex or like the Murktide region I don't have a swords for kind of thing, but typically not great in these sideboard games, these blue mirrors.
And there's the concession. Well played.
Yep.
Good game.
Yeah, that was awesome. Really good day of Legacy.
Yep, lots of great matches. Lots of diversity. I mean, we saw like, a control player in every game, but like there was lots of long, interesting games for that at that. So
Yeah, we had a great time today. Really diverse meta. Top 4 ended up being Taylor's Bant Beanstalk deck that you saw there. I think Nick was in second with Jeskai Control.
no, I think it
Austin
was
was.
Austin, that's
second.
right. Yeah, Delver, and then
His
Nick.
and I split.
And yeah, you took 4th place with the Epic Storm, right, Ben?
That's right. That's what I did.
Outstanding. Well, that was a great day. Ben, Taylor, thank you so much for your commentary. And that's going to wrap it up for Florida Legacy Club tonight. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you for having
Awesome.
me.
Thank you.
Yeah, see y'all.
Yeah, Basket, we're just wrapping up. We're going to post this to YouTube, though, so it'll be available to watch. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Have a good night. We'll find somebody to raid. All right, Strass Daddy is streaming. He's been a big supporter of ours, so we're going to give him a raid. Please hang around and support Strass Daddy.
That it, everybody?
That's it. Have a good night, Ben.
So.
Yep, I've got other plans, so I'm gonna peace out. See you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys. Great job.
Later, y'all.